In 1991, a young girl and her father from Charleston, South Carolina, vanished during a weekend trip to the Blue Ridge Mountains, leaving behind a grieving wife and mother with nothing but questions that would torment her for more than a decade. But 17 years later, a scrapyard worker in rural Greenville County made a chilling discovery tucked between rusted vehicles and forgotten parts. A discovery that would shatter everything she thought she knew. The soft autumn light spilled through the windows of Elaine Rourke's living room, painting pale streaks across the aged hardwood floor. The gentle hum of the heater filled the silence as Elaine sat on the edge of her couch, the remote clenched tightly in her hand. Beside her, her elderly father, Walter Rourke, adjusted his bifocals, his knotted hands folded in his lap. His lips were pressed into a thin line, his face shadowed by anticipation and years of quiet grief. "It's time," Elaine whispered, barely audible, as she turned up the volume on the television. The 6 o'clock local news flickered to life. Elaine leaned forward, her entire body stiff, breath held like it was routine. For 17 years, on this same date, she had paid the Charleston affiliate to run a missing persons alert during the evening news. It had become her ritual, her vigil. A commercial ended, and the screen cut to the anchor. This week marks 17 years since Caleb Rourke, a local dentist, and his 7-year-old daughter Hannah, disappeared on a scenic drive through the Blue Ridge Parkway. They were last seen in a forest green 1985 Lincoln Town car with South Carolina plates. If you have any information, please contact the Charleston Police Department. The screen briefly showed a photo, Caleb standing beside his daughter in front of the car. Caleb's thick brown hair and easy grin framed by his signature corduroy jacket. Hannah clutched a stuffed flamingo, her smile wide and missing 2 baby teeth. Elaine snapped off the TV. Silence swelled in the room, broken only by the wheeze of the heater. She stared at the blank screen, her eyes stinging, her hands trembling in her lap. "I'll head upstairs and get ready for dinner," Walter said gently, patting her shoulder. Elaine nodded. As he shuffled off, she crossed to the built-in bookshelf and pulled down a sun-bleached, leather-bound photo album. She opened it like a sacred text, page after page of memories. Caleb with Hannah on her first day of kindergarten. A family barbecue at Folly Beach. Caleb adjusting the mirrors on the Lincoln before their trip. His pride and joy after saving up for years to buy it. Elaine pressed a trembling finger against the photo of Hannah in her pink rain boots, clutching that stuffed flamingo. "Where are you?" she whispered. The phone rang. She jumped, slamming the album closed. Heart pounding, she rushed into the kitchen. "Hello, Mrs. Rourke?" a deep voice asked. "This is Officer Jared McMillan with the Charleston Police Department." Her breath caught. "Yes, we received a report from a salvage yard near Greenville. They found something that may be connected to your husband and daughter's case. We'd like you to come take a look." Elaine clutched the counter for support. "What did they find?" "I'd rather not say over the phone. A patrol car is en route to your address now. Would you be available to come with us to identify it?" "Yes," she said, the word barely escaping her throat. "Yes, I'll be ready." She hung up the phone and called out, "Dad, the police found something. They want me to come with them. It might be connected to Caleb and Hannah." Walter appeared at the top of the stairs, his face gone pale. "I'm coming too." Minutes later, a cruiser pulled into the driveway. A young officer, Kim Reyes, stepped out, greeted them solemnly, and opened the door. They sat in silence for the entire 2-hour drive, the roads winding through the golden reds and browns of the Carolina fall. As they pulled into Ranger's Auto Salvage, yellow police tape marked off a section near the back of the lot. Several officers and detectives stood in a small huddle, talking quietly among themselves. "Detective Shay Hammond will meet you," Officer Reyes said as she led them toward the taped-off area. "Please take your time." Elaine felt the world tilt slightly as they stepped closer. There, nestled between scrap metal piles and wrecked cars, was the crushed shell of a green Lincoln Town car. The front end was nearly flattened, the windows long gone, paint rusting through in patches. But there was no doubt. That was Caleb's car. Walter's breath hitched audibly beside her. Detective Hammond stepped forward. Mrs. Rourke, we believe this is your husband's vehicle. We'll need you to confirm. Elaine stepped closer, the sour metallic smell of rust and oil burning her nose. She moved slowly around the car, taking it in, the same chrome mirror frame, the cracked rear bumper, and she froze. A thin crack curved along the back left wheel cover, just as she remembered. Caleb had nicked a parking barrier the day before the trip. He said he'd fix it when we got back, she murmured. Walter wiped his eyes. Yes, Elaine said. That's his car. Detective Hammond nodded grimly. The man who found it, Wes Trammell, owns the yard. He's the one who called us. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a faded flannel stepped forward, removing his cap. I swear I didn't know what I had. I found the car behind a shed we haven't used in years. I was clearing space for new inventory, and then I saw it on the news tonight. Recognized the license plate right away. Elaine blinked. How long has it been here? Wes shook his head. That's the strange part. I've only owned the place 6 years. The lot's records only go back to '99. This car isn't on any logs. No paperwork. No entry slip. Nothing. Detective Hammond turned to a younger woman in greasy overalls. Did anyone else mention bringing in a Lincoln? The woman nodded slowly. I saw Craig Blythe drive it in last week. He's our tech manager. Runs the back-end stuff. Where's Craig now? The detective asked. Off shift. Should be home. I can get you his address. They wrote it down and dispatched a unit. Elaine stared at the crushed vehicle again. Where's Caleb? Where's Hannah? That's what we intend to find out, Detective Hammond replied. The cruiser rumbled through winding back roads toward Craig Blythe's address just outside Traveler's Rest, a sleepy town at the base of the Blue Ridge foothills. Detective Hammond sat stiffly in the front seat, his jaw clenched, flipping through the limited personnel file they had on Craig. Elaine sat in the back beside her father, hands clasped tightly in her lap, the image of Caleb's crushed Lincoln still burning in her mind. The car pulled into a narrow gravel driveway flanked by pine trees. At the end stood a modest, 2-story home with peeling blue siding and a shed in the back that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. A rusted Chevy S10 was parked crookedly by the porch. The detective turned to Elaine and Walter. Please stay in the car while we make contact. Elaine nodded, barely breathing. As the officers approached the house, the front door opened. A man in his late 30s with thinning hair and an oil-stained shirt stepped onto the porch, squinting into the twilight. You Craig Blythe? Hammond called out. Yeah, what's this about? We have questions regarding a vehicle you brought into Ranger's Auto Salvage. A Lincoln Town car. Craig blinked, clearly confused or pretending to be. I don't know what you're talking about. You were seen driving it into the yard last week. Witnesses confirm it. You didn't log it. We need to know where it came from. Craig scratched his head. Oh, that one. Yeah, I remember now. Some old guy dropped it off, said it was abandoned on his land for years. Paid me $50 to haul it in. Do you have a name? Paperwork. Craig hesitated. Nah, he didn't give me anything. Just cash. Why wasn't it logged? Craig swallowed. Forgot. It slipped through the cracks. Hammond didn't blink. Mind if we take a look inside your house? Craig raised his hands. Sure. I've got nothing to hide. He stepped aside. Inside, the house smelled like old cigarettes and mildew. Newspapers were stacked waist-high in one corner. A black and white TV played static in the background. Just me and the cats here, Craig muttered as the officers stepped inside. Never had visitors from Charleston PD before. This about something serious. We believe the car you brought in may be tied to a 1991 missing persons case, Hammond said. A man and his daughter. Craig's brow furrowed. That old? Yes, so you can understand why we need to search your premises. One of the officers headed toward a closed door at the end of the hallway. What's in here? My workshop, Craig replied too quickly. Just tools. The officer tried the knob. It was locked. Key? Hammond asked. Craig hesitated, then reached into his pocket and handed over a small ring. The officer unlocked the door and flipped on the light. Elaine couldn't see inside, but she could hear it. The officer's sharp intake of breath, followed by the sound of camera shutters. "Detective," one of them called. "You'll want to see this." Elaine and Walter stepped cautiously onto the porch. Detective Hammond motioned for them to stay back, but curiosity burned through Elaine's fear. She edged toward the doorway and peered inside. The walls of the workshop were covered with photographs. Hundreds of them. Faded Polaroids, grainy snapshots, developed film prints. Most of them featured young girls. School events, playing in parks, riding bikes, all taken from a distance. But there were a few that were closer, much closer. Elaine stepped back, her heart in her throat. "Craig," Hammond said coldly, "why do you have all these? They're just photos." Craig protested. "Nothing illegal about photos. Who are these girls?" Craig didn't answer. One officer moved toward a filing cabinet in the corner. He pulled open the top drawer and froze. Inside, carefully organized in plastic sleeves, were personal items. Hair ribbons, bracelets, school ID tags, and a small blue child's wallet with a flamingo sticker. Elaine gasped. "That's Hannah's," she whispered. Craig's face went pale. Detective Hammond signaled to the officers. "Cuff him. You don't understand," Craig cried as they pushed him against the wall. "I didn't take her. I found it." "Found it where?" Hammond barked. "An old trailer outside of Taylor's. I was scrapping appliances. Found a box with that wallet inside. I kept it because I thought maybe it was valuable." Elaine stepped forward, trembling. "You expect me to believe that?" "I swear," Craig pleaded. "I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't take that girl." "You're under arrest," the officer interrupted. "You have the right to remain silent." Craig's voice grew shrill. "I'm just the middleman. If you want the truth, talk to Miles Godfrey. He's the one with the property." "Who is Miles Godfrey?" Hammond asked sharply. "Used to run a scrap hauling crew. Worked out of a farm off Locust Ridge Road, near the state line. He disappeared years ago. People said he skipped town. But that's enough," Hammond said. As they hauled Craig out of the house, Elaine felt her knees go weak. Detective Hammond turned to her gently. "Are you all right?" She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to know. Is my daughter alive?" "We're going to find out," he said. Back at the station, Hammond compiled the photos and personal items as evidence. Officers ran Craig's prints and began digging into records tied to Miles Godfrey. Elaine and Walter were given a conference room to rest. An hour later, Hammond entered with a grim expression. "We've located the property Craig mentioned. It's a foreclosed estate deep in the woods, last owned by Miles Godfrey. County records show it changed hands multiple times, but hasn't been occupied in over 10 years. Elaine's heart hammered. "We're sending a unit there at dawn. It's too remote and dark now. We want to make sure it's done right." Walter stood. "We're coming." "You don't have to." "We do," Elaine said. "I need to be there." Detective Hammond nodded. "We'll leave at first light." That night, Elaine couldn't sleep. She sat up in the motel room provided by the department, staring at the wallet now in an evidence bag on the desk. The sticker was faded, but unmistakable. A flamingo. She reached for her phone and opened an old voicemail she hadn't played in years. Hannah's voice, so sweet, so small, came through the speaker. "Hi, Mommy. I love you." Elaine clutched the phone to her chest and wept silently. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps us continue telling gripping, emotional stories like this one. Drop a comment below. What do you think is waiting at Miles Godfrey's farm? The morning fog clung to the trees like a shroud as the convoy of police vehicles rumbled down Locust Ridge Road, miles from any recognizable town. The road had long since given way to cracked pavement and loose gravel, flanked by dense clusters of pine, oak, and underbrush. Elaine Rourke sat in the back of the lead cruiser, her father Walter beside her. Detective Shay Hammond rode in front with Officer Reyes, reviewing satellite images of the abandoned estate. last recorded under the name Miles Godfrey, a man who had slipped through every legal net for nearly 2 decades. "We're coming up on the turn," Reyes said, slowing as they spotted an overgrown trail veering off the road. A rusted mailbox leaned sideways at the edge. The name Godfrey was barely legible under peeling paint. "Let's proceed with caution," Hammond instructed. The convoy turned off, tires crunching over gravel and weeds. As they broke through the trees, a structure emerged ahead. An old white farmhouse with flaking paint, its windows boarded up, the porch caved in on one side. Behind it stood a weathered camper trailer, stained with moss and time. To the left, a rusted barn loomed like a forgotten monument. The area was silent. "All units, spread out and secure the perimeter," Hammond ordered into his radio. Elaine's heart thundered in her chest as she stepped out onto the damp grass. The air smelled of mold, iron, and something deeper, something rotten. Walter placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Are you sure about this?" he asked softly. Elaine nodded. "Whatever's inside, I have to know." As officers moved into position, Reyes and Hammond approached the farmhouse. "Front door's barricaded," Reyes said, rattling it. "But there's a side entrance." They moved quickly around the side and forced the door open. The interior was as grim as expected. Wallpaper peeled like skin from the walls. A rancid smell clung to the air. In the back room, they found something worse. "Detective," an officer called. "You need to see this." Hammond stepped inside a dim, windowless room. Chains hung from the wall. A stained mattress lay on the floor, surrounded by scattered personal items. Children's clothing, shoes, toys from another era. Elaine approached behind him and gasped, covering her mouth. On the wall, scratched into the wood, were initials, HR. "Oh my God," she whispered. Walter stepped beside her, pale and trembling. "It's her. It's Hannah. She was here." "Clear the camper," Hammond said, urgency now cracking his voice. Officers drew weapons as they approached the trailer. It rocked slightly, the door half open. "Police!" an officer shouted. "Come out now with your hands up." A rustling inside. Then the door creaked open. A young woman, mid-20s, disheveled, eyes wide with terror, stepped into view, her hands trembling in front of her. "Get on your knees," one officer barked. She complied immediately. Elaine stepped closer, her eyes scanning the woman's face. The resemblance was haunting. Same jawline, same eyes, but she looked hollow. "Ma'am," Hammond said gently, stepping in. "What's your name?" The woman didn't speak. He crouched. "We're here to help you. Can you tell us your name?" The woman blinked slowly. Samantha." Elaine's heart nearly stopped. Do you remember anything else?" Hammond asked. The woman's lips parted, but no sound came. "I don't know you," she whispered, her voice raw. Elaine dropped to her knees beside her. "Hannah." Samantha recoiled slightly, confused. "Hannah Rourke. Do you remember that name? I'm your mother. Please, look at me." But the girl only blinked, her body shivering in the damp morning air. One of the female officers wrapped her in a blanket and helped her into the ambulance that had arrived moments before. "She's in shock," the medic said. "Possibly drugged, possibly worse. We'll need to get her to the hospital for a full evaluation." As they carried Samantha away, Elaine stood frozen, heart pounding. "That's her," she said at last. "It's Hannah. I know it." The detective nodded. "We'll run DNA, but based on the timing and Craig's statement, it's likely." They searched the barn next. Behind rusted tools and collapsed shelving, officers found boxes of clothing, burnt photos, old licenses, and hidden compartments. But no sign of Caleb Rourke. The next few hours blurred into endless interviews, cataloging evidence, and transporting the young woman, Samantha, to Greenville Memorial Hospital. Elaine and Walter followed in a second vehicle, their silence heavy with disbelief. At the hospital, they were told Samantha was being sedated for her own safety. She had suffered significant physical and psychological trauma, and until she could be stabilized, No one could speak to her directly. Elaine stared through the glass as her daughter, or the woman she prayed was her daughter, lay unconscious under crisp white sheets. "She's alive," she whispered. "After all this time, she's alive." Walter squeezed her hand. "We'll get her back, Elaine, no matter how long it takes." Later that evening, Detective Hammond arrived at the hospital with updates. "DNA will take time," he said, "but we believe it's her." Craig confessed to being involved in the disposal of Caleb's car. He also admitted that he had helped Godfrey relocate a child years ago. Elaine sat stiffly. "What about Godfrey? Still missing. But we now believe he was using multiple aliases. One of them, Charles Kent, matches the description of a man recently seen outside Wilmington, North Carolina. A known predator. That's where we're headed next." Walter frowned. "And Caleb? We still have no confirmed remains. But Craig's statement implies that Godfrey murdered him that first night." Elaine closed her eyes. 17 years, she whispered. "And she was locked away, treated like a thing." "We'll get justice," Hammond said. Glowing Star, if you're following this story, smash that like button and subscribe. Memo, drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Samantha recognize Elaine? Do you believe Caleb is still out there? The fluorescent lights in Greenville Memorial Hospital buzzed faintly as Elaine sat beside the hospital bed, her hands curled tightly around the railing. The young woman lying still under the white blanket hadn't spoken since the ambulance brought her in. Not a word, not a flicker of recognition. But Elaine didn't need proof. She knew in her soul that this woman, haunted and hollow-eyed, was her daughter, Hannah. A soft knock at the door pulled her attention. Detective Shay Hammond stepped in, his face grave but resolute. "We found him," he said quietly. Elaine stood, her voice catching. "Godfrey?" Hammond nodded. "He was hiding in a rented storage unit outside Wilmington under the name Charles Kent. The same alias we found connected to the child trafficking operation stretching back years. He's in custody. Alive." Elaine's hands shook. "And my husband?" she whispered. Hammond paused, choosing his words carefully. "He confessed. He killed Caleb Rourke the night they arrived at a motel in Asheville. He said Caleb was too curious. He buried the body in a limestone sinkhole on a property he once owned near the state border." Elaine covered her mouth. The air left her lungs in a single, aching sob. "I'm so sorry," Hammond said, his voice breaking. "They never even made it to the mountains," Elaine whispered. "He just wanted to show her the leaves. I've assigned a forensic unit to search the site. We'll bring him home." Elaine nodded slowly, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. Then Hammond said the words she hadn't dared to hope for. "Samantha's DNA is a match," he said gently. "She's your daughter." Elaine crumpled into the nearest chair, sobbing into her hands. Walter, who had entered behind Hammond, crossed the room and placed his hands on her shoulders. "They found her," he whispered. 17 years later, but they found her. Over the next few days, the story exploded across South Carolina. News anchors recounted the timeline: Caleb and Hannah Rourke disappearing in 1991, the crushed Lincoln discovered in a junkyard in 2008, and now the miraculous recovery of Hannah, alive after nearly 2 decades in captivity. Godfrey's mugshot flooded the airwaves. An aging, grizzled man with dead eyes. Reporters called him a drifter, a child predator, a sadistic manipulator. He was linked to multiple cold cases spanning Georgia, Tennessee, and the Carolinas. But one thing was clear: his time was over. Reed Carver, the scrapyard technician who had driven Caleb's car into the yard, had accepted a plea deal in exchange for full cooperation. He admitted that he'd helped Godfrey conceal evidence, dispose of stolen vehicles, and cover tracks for years. Godfrey's trial was set to begin in the spring. Inside the hospital, Hannah, or Samantha, as she still called herself, began to show signs of emotional thaw. She spoke occasionally, softly, hesitantly, but only to Walter. He sat with her daily, reading aloud from old children's books, retelling stories from when she was a little girl. Her love for flamingos, the dollhouse Caleb had built her by hand, the time she got gum in her hair and insisted on shaving it all off. Hannah listened, silent but alert. One afternoon, she reached out without speaking and touched Walter's hand. "She's in there," he whispered later. "She's just buried under too much pain." Elaine waited, never pushing, never forcing memories. She brought in Hannah's favorite stuffed animal, the faded flamingo from the family photo. She placed it on the bedside table and hoped. On the 6th day, Hannah finally turned toward her. "I remember you, crying," she whispered. Elaine froze. "It was a dream," Hannah said. "You were calling for me. I heard you." Elaine leaned forward, her hands trembling. "It wasn't a dream, sweetheart. I never stopped calling." Hannah looked away, tears welling in her eyes. "I thought you were gone," she said. Elaine choked back a sob. "You were never gone. You were taken. But we found you." Hannah reached for the flamingo. She pulled it into her chest and curled around it. The nurse, standing quietly in the doorway, smiled. 2 weeks later, they released Hannah into Elaine's custody. A trauma specialist would visit the home regularly, and she would begin intensive therapy sessions. But for the first time in 17 years, mother and daughter were under the same roof. Hannah didn't say much during the drive home, but she didn't look away either. She stared out the window as they passed the downtown shops, the river walk, the middle school she once attended. Elaine pointed out familiar landmarks gently, like touching old wounds with reverence. At home, Walter had cleaned Hannah's old room. The Barbie wallpaper was gone, but her bookshelf still held a few of her favorite stories. Her bed had new sheets, pale blue like the handbag she used to carry. As she stepped inside, Hannah didn't speak. She just stood there, her shoulders heaving, her eyes wide as the memories returned in silent waves. Then she sat on the bed and began to cry. Elaine held her until dusk. In the weeks that followed, Hannah slowly emerged from the fog of trauma. Her progress was uneven. Some days filled with silence, others with questions. But one afternoon, while sitting with Elaine in the backyard, she turned and asked the one thing Elaine had longed for. "Tell me about Dad." Elaine smiled gently. He was kind and funny. He loved pancakes and fixing things that didn't need fixing. He used to whistle when he brushed his teeth and wore the worst socks imaginable. Hannah laughed. A raw, unfiltered sound. Faded quickly, but it was real. And it was a beginning. Back in Wilmington, Godfrey sat in a prison cell awaiting trial. Prosecutors added charge after charge: murder, kidnapping, false imprisonment, abuse, obstruction of justice. His attorney tried to claim mental instability, but video evidence, DNA, and Craig's detailed testimony dismantled that defense within days. Micah Carver, Reed's father, the elderly man who had tried to help Elaine and Walter during their brief abduction, survived his gunshot wounds and agreed to testify in court. He became the prosecution's unexpected key witness. "I saw what my son had become," he said on the stand, "and I chose to do the right thing, even if it cost me my life." When the jury returned the verdict, the courtroom was silent. Guilty, on all counts. Godfrey showed no emotion. He stared blankly ahead, his eyes empty, his mouth unmoving. He was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Outside the courtroom, Elaine held a press conference. "I have no words that can fully express the grief, the rage, the years stolen from us," she said. "But I thank the investigators, the searchers, the neighbors who never stopped praying, and every stranger who saw Hannah's face and remembered. You brought her home." Then she turned and walked away, her hand wrapped firmly around her daughter's. One evening months later, as the fireflies danced across the lawn and the cicadas hummed in the trees, Hannah sat beside Elaine on the porch swing. She leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "I used to dream of this," she said. Elaine wrapped an arm around her. "Of what?" "Of coming home." They sat in silence as the sun slipped behind the trees. And though the road to healing stretched endlessly before them, it no longer felt impossible. Because for the first time in 17 years, they weren't walking it alone. They were together, and they were free. Glowing star, if this story moved you, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. These are the stories that remind us why hope should never be abandoned. Tell us below, what would you do if someone you loved vanished without a trace? Subscribe for more deeply human, emotional thrillers that grip your heart and soul.